Hey everyone, Brian and Jeff with WorkshopAddict.com, and we are standing in front of our next project that we are going to roll into after we finish Jeff's Can-Am. And we brought a lot to you on Wrenches and Rides. This project is going to roll in on Workshop Addict, and we're going to use a lot of the tools that we go through on a daily basis to change this machine up into one badass rig. Now, we have two guys here. We both ride Can-Ams all the time. We both have Can-Am Maverick X3 XRSs, and Polaris came out with a Turbo S that's the same 72-inch wide model. They've upgraded a ton in 2019, and we're going to give you kind of our view of this machine from a Can-Am guy's perspective. We got Jeff over there who's hardcore Can-Am, and you are never going to talk him into even riding in this thing.
Well, I'll ride in it for certain cases, but buying one, you're not going to get me to go there.
Back in the day, 2016, when we started to ride a little more hardcore, I had a Polaris RZR 1000. It was an XP 1000.
I had a Wildcat 1000.
Yeah, we always looked at the Can-Ams and said, hey, that's where we want to be. I had a catastrophic failure on something on mine, and I ended up rolling 4 or 6 times in it, and that led me right away from Polaris. But once they brought out this Turbo S model, it kind of brought me back. And I thought this would be a good family machine. That's why we have four doors. But this machine is going to be built to rock. And it's 168 horse with the turbo, 32-inch tires stock. I can go through everything on this, but what's your first comment for your negativeness?
For my negativeness, they did an amazing amount of upgrades to this, but it's still the same car. The body of the chassis is the same. It's untouched. They did all their work on the suspension, which granted is good, but I don't like that it's still 1.5 foot higher than the Can-Am.
This thing is tall. We have 16 inches of ground clearance here. Polaris talks about 25 inches of suspension travel, but the reality is an inch of that ish is in the tires. So it's basically the same suspension as the Can-Am. They're using a little marketing here, but I think what draws me to this more than anything else is that first 32-inch tire stock, which is big, but they retuned and remapped the engine to give you the power down low on this. You haven't drove this a lot. It is impressive.
I haven't drove it at all yet, so I'm going to be new to this.
2, the ride command system and the technology that's inside the dynamics and the shocks, to me, is awesome. This has a radio inside already, which we probably won't use, but having a GPS and having the ability to adjust your shocks on the fly, when you turn the steering wheel, when you hit the gas, it's doing it itself. That's cool.
I'm all for that. I love the GPS. That is a definite plus. But all this comes with a price. They're not giving it away.
No, and Polaris is the only one doing it right now, so that is correct. They are charging you right up front for every dime. The third thing that brought me to this when I'm looking at a 4-seater is, while this is a bus, it's only 1.5 foot longer than my Can-Am.
And it is 1.5 foot shorter than the Can-Am 4-door. So you're kind of in the middle there.
Right, so for lengthwise, I liked that I could still fit this on a 14-foot trailer. We're only 13.5, I believe, front to back. So I can still get it on my 14-foot trailer, haul it behind the RV, take the family, no issue. We are significantly taller, and your seating stance in here, Polaris says, was adjusted, so you're laid back slightly. And I'll say that slightly. You're still sitting up very straight.
If we put in actual degrees on the Can-Am compared to the Polaris, you're still almost at a 90 degree in the Polaris versus the Can-Am.
It's a Corvette to a Ford Explorer is what you're driving, and that's the truth, and I fully go with you. But what turns me on more to this machine, if I'm buying one and looking at it, is the thickness of metal that Polaris is using throughout the whole machine. And we won't talk about the roll cage as far as thickness of metal, although this is nice and thick, but this one already went through a recall once, not the 4-door, but the 2-door. So they changed everything on here. But the A-arms are already high clearance A-arms, and they are beefy. That you're not finding that anywhere else. You got
I agree. They put a lot of time and effort and research in the suspension on this machine.
You have a lot of double shear areas where you don't in other places. Some work the same. When you go to the back of the machine, it's impressive what they did on the 4-seaters with the radius rods. You have high clearance radius rods. Those things are just huge.
Yeah, they're actually casting added on to tubing, not just bent tubes like you would get in the aftermarket. So yeah, there's a lot of design to it.
But
I'm curious to see how it's going to respond, what we're going to change, what we're not going to change.
I'm right there. We're going to have a blast with this, and we're going to tear this machine down as far as we possibly can. We're going to start this over. We already are seeing a few things that we like. First, there is a car battery on the inside underneath the seat. We joke a lot about what do we do with our Can-Ams, because you have to unbolt the seat. So basically in our XRS, there's 6 bolts that has to come out, 2 for the seat belt, 4 for the seat. Then you pull the seat out to get at the battery. Here we just pull the seat out with 1 clip, easy release.
And there's the battery. Now, granted, I give you that. Servicing this machine, they've made it easy. Oil change, air filter, battery accessibility is all right there.
Spark plugs are easy right underneath in the bed. You actually have a bed that you can put things in.
You can do pro and con on that. Is it so easy because it needs that? Or is it just easier?
So here's the Milwaukee and DeWalt debate.
You know, it's...
it is what it is, and that's the funny part of this. And there is some humor going back and forth, the inside jabs here that you might not really see or know of, but at the same point, there's a lot of pros and cons to this. And if you're out looking in the market for one of these new machines, you're going to spend a boatload of money. And when you're walking around, you know, little things like thicker metal are a big deal, but are you ever going to get past the point of, do you want to ride in a Corvette or do you want to ride in a Ford Explorer? And that's a big deal. Now you have to just get in it. And what I've heard is if you're under 6 foot tall, you really like the Polaris. If you're over 6 foot tall, you really like the Can-Am. I think a lot of people like the Can-Am, no matter what, just because of how you're sitting, but rear view in the Can-Am sucks. Backing it up, as we've seen in Hatfield-McCoy, when you're in tough areas and you want to see down low as to what you're climbing, you can't see it.
Because you're sitting lower in the chassis versus, you got a lot more visibility in the Polaris because of how you sit.
And they have front and rear dash cams.
Well, okay, now we're back to something
He's just
totally
going
different.
into technology again, but however it is, we hope that you guys are subscribed to this channel. We hope that you like watching a lot of these videos that we go through and follow us through as we build this. We're going to have some awesome tools that are going to go into this machine and make it what is going to be just badass. I can't tell you what else is going to happen to it, but from probably January 15th on, this is going to be one of our go-to items. Make sure you subscribe to Wrenches and Rides as we finish up Jeff's Can-Am and follow us through some of these projects. It's going to be a blast. Thank you for your time. Have a great day.